Hello everybody, this is me, Piglet here, and I'm Mickey Mouse here, and we are from the Muxy Toys, and welcome to our new Let's Play, and also the new Let's Play of the Super Smash Bros. Marathon, in this case the Super Smash Bros. Series. Rather than just actually going into Super Smash Bros. Brawl just yet though, especially the 4th entry, and in this case the latest series, because we're about to be tackling through the second installment of the Super Smash Bros. Playthroughs. This is Super Smash Bros. Melee, released for the Nintendo GameCube in 2001 from Japan and North America, and a year later in Europe in 2002. Due to the Nintendo GameCube's launch in UK in 2002, and then in North America and Japanese version did came out in 2001. And speaking of such though, this game is 15 years old in that time, since this was 2016 after all, and also for the likes of the Nintendo GameCube system as well. So with that being said though, that this game in Japan calls it Smash Bros. DX, or in this case Smash Bros. Deluxe, because the DX represents meaning that it was all about deluxe and all that kinds of stuff. So anyway though, so with that being said though, that Sonic and Knuckles during the last year, that they've recently tackled through Super Smash Bros. From the Nintendo 64, the start of the Super Smash Bros. Franchise. And even then though, we decided to go ahead and do the second installment until right now, since today was actually the 2nd of October, which means they figured that we might actually tackle for this game until at the very end of 2016, before when someone else or some toys else can do Super Smash Bros. Brawl next year. And also the likes of the new latest version, or in this case the latest installment as well. So anyways though, that since in Super Smash Bros. 64 did have less amount of content than of the future installments, but in this game though, it actually has a crap ton of features to actually just to explore on, especially the single player campaign this time around. Like for regular match mode, we have ourselves classic mode, offensive mode, and all-star mode, and the events match mode was the introduction to this particular game. It was in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U actually has that as well. And as well as the stadium mode, that it has target test, means target break the target scenario has a return for this game. And the only missing feature we found out, it was the fact that, oh yeah, we also have training mode as well to actually figure out to practice the game itself, as well as the actual fighting mechanics are for this game, which we'll get into now as soon as we actually get into the first ever character we're about to be selected from, especially the first ever mode we're about to be selecting through, and that was the classic mode, which basically classic mode feels exactly similar to the actual single player mode from the actual Super Smash Bros. Game for the Nintendo 64. But we'll explain more to that when we actually jump into that mode. So, yeah, you probably noticed there's also two new bunch of modes you can actually just entertain with, like Home Run Contest, as well as some multi-man melee, which from my understanding for that as well. So, for the most part though, that we might actually go ahead and say now that we're mostly going to be tackling through the single player campaign modes, rather than just actually going to deal with some other modes as well, unfortunately though, guys, because the reason being for that is because, well, obviously 2016 was almost over for that particular point. So anyways, let's go into, as you expected, the returning mode from Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 64, which was known as Classic Mode. So you remember how in Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 64 actually has 12 different characters, well, you usually start off with 8 at first, and you unlock 4 at the very end. But this game though, it actually has like, let's say about 14 playable characters to your disposal, and then they actually have 25 playable characters, which is quite a lot for a Super Smash Bros. Game, which is pretty cool if you ask me. So we have some returning characters like Mario, Donkey Kong, Link, Samus, Yoshi, Kirby, Fox, and Pikachu, as well as Luigi, Jigglypuff, Ness, and Captain Falcon. Even then though, Ness and Captain Falcon have already been unlocked this time around in Melee, which is pretty cool. So in addition to those characters, to those 12 characters to make a return, we also have some bunch of newcomers introduced in this title, which there are a grand total of, let's say 13 of them. So here we have Dr. Mario, Bowser, Peach, Ganondorf, Falco, Ice Climbers, Zelda, Young Link, Pichu, And Mewtwo, the legendary Pokemon, makes a debut character. And Mr. Game & Watch, Marth, and Roy. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. So anyways though, since we're going to be doing the, as usual, just like the ones in the previous installment, you can change how much you can actually have your stocks in your disposal and also the difficulty as well. So even then though, since this is the first ever part of this particular playthrough, we might as well start off with Mario, as far as you guys should already know at this point. So yeah, so of course you can actually change your name this time around as opposed to the original that you can actually just stick with Mario. But anyway, so let's get started with Super Smash Bros. Melee. So as far as you guys can tell, the parkour, in this case the core gameplay in this game, feels remarkably similar to Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 64, but except the noticeable difference is that the fighting mechanics, especially the movements, is a lot faster now. As opposed to the Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 64, can be quite of a standard pace and what have you. As well as that though, some of these items do make a return, like Fire Flower from the original game, as well as the Nintendo Scope, which I'm assuming that the that item do make a return for this, did make its own appearance in this game, I'm presuming. Which, for what I remember that anyway, although we haven't looked up on the item system on Smash Bros. That much. But anyway. So just like the ones in Super Smash Bros., the actual single-player campaign is that you're actually going into different stages based on what opponents you're about to be facing off against. And rather than just actually going to go against the exact same opponents as each other, instead you're actually going to be competing against with a random opponent. Like, for instance, that the first stage, it's not just always Link we're about to be facing off against, instead we actually face off against as Princess Peach. And then the second stage we're going to be takes place in a different stage, as well as the different opponents we're facing off against, like Mewtwo, the legendary Pokemon, and as well as Bowser, which is kind of cool, because we're about to be fighting against them on the battlefield, which I'm assuming that battlefield level is actually an unlockable level, which we'll get into these unlockables into other future parts of this playthrough. So, anyway, so occasionally you actually come across into those bonus stages every once in a while. And just like the original game, there are a grand total of 3 different bonus stages. So the first one is obvious, which was Break the Target scenario, and just like the ones in the original game, that it takes place into original themed levels, which basically, for instance, Mario has his own level, and unlike how it does in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, that all of the characters will go on the exact same stage, which is a little bit too lame for my taste, but anyway, so for this first particular target level stage, which consists of Mario, is pretty easy. It's a pretty self-explanatory target level, and then since there are a grand total of 25 playable characters this time around, though, is the fact that some of the target test levels can be slightly easier first. Like, for instance, we actually just managed to complete Mario's without even dying whatsoever. And some of the characters we're about to get into later on can get a lot more aggressive, or in this case, much harder this time around, which we'll get to that again during the later parts of this particular playthrough. Oh, we managed to fight against with Fox McCloud, and sorry for the bit of a lack of, the frame rate issues, is because, well, every now and then, especially the likes of when we actually trying to capture footage on our Nintendo Wii to our disposal, it always happens to us. Well, we don't have many problems on the Nintendo Wii U and stuff like that, but even then, we won't let that happen until when we get to capture our gameplay footage on the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, and etc. But it always happens during Nintendo Wii playthroughs, or especially the Nintendo GameCube Let's Plays and stuff like that. So, anyway. And here's a replacement bonus stage. You know how in the N64 installment of the Super Smash Bros. Series, there was actually a missing mode that was not actually returned to this game, which was called Board the Platforms, which you're gonna have to board all 10 of those platforms. That's no longer present in this game, which is unfortunate, because I found the Board the Platforms bonus stage is actually a lot of fun to actually go with. But instead it's actually been replaced as Grab the Trophy shenanigans, which basically all you do for that particular bonus level is the fact that you need to actually just keep punching the trophy, and then every time when you punch the trophy, it'll actually just to go fly about and then just try to actually go into the center of the circle. Because in order to actually get those trophies, which are essentially the collectibles in this game this time around, and as opposed to the original, there aren't any collectibles. But anyway. Oh, right off the bat though, we're starting off with a... Well, since it's the first part of this particular playthrough, we're about to be facing off against with Team Mr. Game & Watch. And as you expected, there are plenty of stages to actually explore. And there are quite a lot of them this time around, as opposed to 9 in the original game. Like, for instance, we're actually going to be on to these bunch of new stages that we actually been into recently, which is Princess Peach's Castle, which is essentially the first stage we actually been into, as well as Battlefield, which is pretty self-explanatory, just like how it does in the original game, but now it's been become a playable stage this time around, as opposed to actually just to be non-playable stage. But either way, though, unless if you actually access to debug mode and stuff like that, but even then, though, we haven't tried that out. So I digress though. So, in another stage we actually been out on though, it was actually Vermin, which is essentially the based on the final level in Star Fox 64 or Liar Wars if you want to prefer coin there. But either way though. And as well as the other stage we actually been into recently, which was Mute City, which is a Captain Falcon level, which finally that the Captain Falcon has his own stage this time around. And as well as the other stage called, what's this stage called that I actually been into? Icicle Mountain? Yup, Icicle Mountain. Icicle Mountain is actually this is definitely my least favorite level of the entire game. We'll get to that when we get to the adventure mode at some point. I'm sure many people already know this. So anyway though, and another stage we actually been into recently, which is called Flat Zone, which everything else is entirely 2D, which is pretty cool. You actually go explore or fight against each other during the 2D console, which is pretty cool. But I digress though. But we'll explain more on Mr. Game & Watch until then, and as well as the unlockable stages and all that kinds of stuff, because just like Battlefield, that Flat Zone is basically the next unlockable stage, but again, we'll get into that as soon as we actually discuss about unlockable stuff. And the third and final bonus stage is pretty self-explanatory. Basically, we have to reach against to the exit and all that kinds of stuff. However, there's actually a lot more doors this time around, instead of just only one door in the original game, so... As well as you don't have to worry about these little fighting polygon fighters, the ones in the original game, and as well as a bunch of obstacles and all that, like bumpers and etc. However, bumpers are entirely absent in this game for some reason, but even then though, that these items are pretty much an OP item. As far as in the future installments we'll get into, like Super Smash Bros. Brawl and the fourth entry in the series, but I digress though. Every now and then, even though we actually been into Battlefield for a second time for Mario playthrough, but I digress. And as usual, just like the original game, we're going to come across into the final battle in Classic Mode, which is easily known as Master Hand. Now, Master Hand I found is pretty easy this time around, as opposed to the original, that, for one, that the stage itself is a bit wider this time around, like with this stage we've actually been into right now. This is known as Final Destination, which is pretty self-explanatory, just like how it does in the original Smash Bros. Game. But there's actually more to it than that from Melee, because as you can tell, here we have ourselves a new enemy to face off against, which was known as, if you can tell, this is actually based off of the left hand, as opposed to the right-handed Master Hand. This guy is known as Crazy Hand, which is basically identical to Master Hand, but the noticeable difference is that he was actually a little bit much tougher as far as the his actual antics and all that kinds of stuff. Like for instance, this little attack there, where originally Master Hand did done that attack from before, but I think also that his strength was actually double ice, which can be quite a loose lever challenge compared to the likes of the original game. So every now and then, Rounders actually just face off against with Master Hand this time around, or just with Master Hand. So instead, every now and then, unless if you actually change the difficulty into normal, hard or very hard mode, it depends on if you actually become pro at it, you actually have the ability to actually face off against with Crazy Hand. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. And also if you probably noticed is that since we are at the normal difficulty of Classic Mode, you probably notice our HP of Master Hand is still pretty much exactly the same, like 300 HP, including the Crazy Hand as well. But even notice though, for somehow, that it depends on what characters you'll be using, assuming what difficulty you've been selecting, that if for instance you're actually trying to pick very easy difficulties, especially the very hard difficulties, their HP actually changes every once in a while, depends on what difficulties you select. Like for instance, if you actually be picking classic mode for a very easy mode, you actually have to deal with Master Hand for consists of 150 HP. But then in easy mode, you can actually face off against with him on 250 HP. And I'm assuming on hard and very hard mode, you have to face off with Master Hand, which consists of 360 HP, I'm assuming, which for I remember that correctly. So there you go. That's how we actually deal with Master Hand and Crazy Hand with their respective HP supplies. And what's cool about it is that just like the ones in the original game, you actually get yourself some ton of bonuses every time when you actually do those specific things. Like for instance, since we actually done break the target scenario, we actually get ourselves a target master. And if we actually beat ourselves Crazy Hand from, you know, at the very end of the game, assuming if you actually be fast enough, and even then you can actually beat the game on normal mode, you actually get yourselves a Crazy Hand KO, which this means you get a crap ton of points on your total count, which is kind of cool. And rather than just become ourselves plushie toys, instead we're actually going to be transformed into trophies themselves, which is quite cool. And as well as a cool thing on the background, which we'll get into that in a second. But for now though, we actually have ourselves a credit sequence right now. Now, just like the ones in the original game, you're gonna have to shoot those bunch of tags, which is kind of reminds me like that, but except the noticeable difference is that it actually has a really excellent, or in this case, a beautiful atmosphere. Like you're gonna be shooting those staff credit stuff and doing it in space, which is really cool, rather than just actual plain black background. But even then though, that in the first game did actually have some less content than the ones in Melee in the future installments, but I digress though. That's just from my personal preference here and there, but I digress. I don't think it's really much known for the staff credits, unlike the ones in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and especially the latest installment, Smash 4 for the Wii U and 3DS, but we'll explain more into those until we actually get into these. So, anyway. So, all you do for these staff credits is you have to shoot those whole bunch of scenarios, like text, as well as some logos represents the different company, whoever made Super Smash Bros. Melee to begin with. So, but even then though, since this is a PAL version of the game, so it actually features 2002 copyright, so even then, again, since the Nintendo GameCube did actually launch in Europe in 2002, and a year, or in this case 2001, in Japan, and as well as the United States of America. And then after, when you actually beat Classic Mode or the Adventure Mode, especially All-Star Mode, which we'll get into that later, that means you actually get to see this little cool image of that congratulations image. Like for instance, there's actually 4 Marios performing a tornado attack. Oh crap, we haven't mentioned about the Mario's special moves, don't we? And yeah, so we're gonna have to end things off here. So next time on Let's Play Super Smash Bros. Melee from the Nintendo GameCube, we're about to be going to have to play against or play as Donkey Kong next on Classic Mode. So see you guys then. Later, fellas.